With what you were telling me and what we've discovered is technical content is incredibly accurate. So while for some things it feels a bit like this is the gist of what it is, but for technical documents, the translation is amazing.
Yeah, I mean the gisting, which is the term that you were using, is often used by machine translation researchers as one of the end goals for today's generation of machine translation systems. And it's really, like you said, it's not a replacement for human translations, right? It's not a replacement for a professional translator. But there are many scenarios where a user would love to understand the gist of what's going on a particular page or in an email than not have anything at all. And those are the scenarios where this technology comes in and certainly helps quite a bit. And with technical domain, again, it's really a matter of how the engine has been trained. And we, in fact, internally at least, we use a very specific engine that is trained for technical domain, and it helps a lot of teams across Microsoft in localizing their interfaces, their documentation. They still, because that's not a gisting scenario, they still do post-editing, which basically means, after they run it through machine translation, they also have humans go through it, but it does have cost savings for them.
Of course, it massively. It's an edit process rather than a whole translation process. Right. So we've at Mix we handed out these Microsoft Translator cards, which get you started with Translator, but it almost feels like actually this card has all the code you need to do translation. Certainly for the Ajax stuff, the Ajax stuff, the JavaScript API is so simple. You just add like one line of JavaScript and then you call Microsoft.translate or translator.translate. You pass in the text, the to and the from, and bang, it does it.
It's trivial. I mean, in terms of complexity, this you couldn't get simpler in terms of the APIs. And I haven't programmed in a little while, but I never did any JavaScript programming. But when I was playing around with my blog, it was so simple for me to basically call that reference, point to the Ajax endpoint, and basically inherit those methods, and then I could point to any element on the page and say translate this element only, or I could point to an element and say translate all the elements in that are parents to this element.
And then on the other side we have REST and SOAP is also available, so we can just make HTTP calls, we can make SOAP web service calls, and we can get translation, we can detect what language a piece of text is in, we can find out what languages are available to translate to. We can auto-detect.
There are many situations where just a simple HTTP call is all you need, right? You want to send in a couple of sentences and figure out what language it is in. You don't necessarily have to. You might not want to do the Ajax thing, or you might be doing it from a rich client application, or
and actually, I use the HTTP in the iPhone app that I built, the translation station that does the translation, right? So it just uses an HTTP call, sends it up to the big set of servers you guys are hosting, does the translation, comes back down. And what do I pay for that? Nothing. Right? Yeah. That's how cool it is. I don't even have to pay for it, and so that's pretty cool. So all these APIs are free.
Yeah. So when we launched at Mix, we basically said the widget and the Ajax API are free for any type of use, including commercial use. The SOAP and HTTP APIs, we said, they're free for development purposes. I mean, you can use it in low volume scenarios and non-commercial scenarios. But now, as part of our announcement here, we're also announcing that we have commercial licenses available. Now, we are not necessarily charging for these commercial licenses. We just still want to understand the scenarios, especially if it's going to be a high volume scenario. And so we encourage commercial users that want to put this in a commercial app or use it on a commercial basis to get in touch with us and sign an agreement.
But I'm pretty safe in saying that if it's just an app that someone has to manually go and do a translate, it's going to be free for them.
Yeah.
It's only if you're going to do like huge batch translation of massive libraries of documents that you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a gate on, you know, the volume of translations even. It's more, so one thing we want to make sure is that you don't push so many translations in a very short period of time to the service,
right,
that the service starts thinking that this is some sort of a denial of service attack, right? Because we have, you know, we have logic that looking for denial of service type attacks, and so, you know, that's one of those things that we want to you know, consider. I mean, the commercial pieces, there might be some other requirements that certain companies have, like some folks have approached us about SSL support, and you know, SSL could get quite expensive if you want to push a lot of data through it. So those are the kinds of situations where we might actually talk about, you know, what
some kind of cost.
But in most other cases, especially while we are in beta, you know, it's free for.
So that's the other big shift that's happened is Mix this year, and we announced CTP. Now at TechEd this year we're announcing going to beta, which there's big implications to that, because a lot of CTPs, when Microsoft does something as a CTP, there's no guarantee it'll ever ship.
Right.
It's a technology preview that Microsoft is kind of finding out whether people are going to like it, whether it's going to work, whether that's the right format. And there are some CTPs that get taken down and you never see them as products. They become used internally, or the research shows it's not something someone wants. By going to beta, you're already saying this is going to be a full product, it will go to release.
Yeah.
We're going to support it going forward.
So more importantly, I think also the thing that happens between a CTP and something like a beta is sometimes you may have to change, you know, a bunch of stuff in your code, like be it features, be it even some of the API calls. You know.
And that has happened actually. I think some of the API calls have changed. There's been a drop of some of the synchronous stuff, just going to the async type scenarios.
Yeah, I mean we've been trying to, you know, be very consistent with respect to, you know, the good practices that many of the other Microsoft APIs follow, and so definitely something that we've been working towards. But now that, you know, I think we feel a lot more comfortable with the API, the version 1 of the API at least, and so our hope is to get the V1 API to a gold state, you know, in the coming months, and then start working on a V2 of the API.
Excellent. Look forward to it. It's been a fun ride riding along with you for the last 9 months or so with the Translator team and working with the research group. Yeah,
it's been great. I mean, the interactive SDK that N Squared built for us has been very, very popular. We have a lot of users that go and play with it, and it's quite nice because that's all it takes. I mean, you don't need anything else. You can just point them to that interactive SDK. It explains to you all the options they have. They can go and see it in action. They can actually play with it and see how it works, and then immediately look at the code that is behind it, so that, you know, in simpler scenarios they can just copy and paste that code into.
So how did these guys get there? They go MicrosoftTranslator.com. So it's not Microsoft.com, MicrosoftTranslator.com, all one word.
Yeah.
/tools.
And that page has everything. It has the user tools, it has the dev tools, and it has the webmaster tools.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and you will be using, I mean, you can rest assured that, you know, you are using the same technology that is powering, you know, Bing Translator, so all the consumer-oriented features of Bing, the Internet Explorer features that involve translation, Office 2010, the new Office, Office 2010 features, Mini Translator, and the Research Pane Translator, and, you know, and a number of other internal and external Microsoft partners that are already using it.
Right.
And, you know, if you have not played with the Messenger bot, which is
mtbot at
hotmail.com. You just add that to your Messenger client, and, you know, you can start a conversation. It's pretty self-explanatory. Asks you for your language, asks for the language to translate to. You can invite somebody to a conversation, invite the bot to that conversation, and it'll
It's
translate.
very cool. Yeah.
So all of these are powered by the same technology, and
it's now available to everyone.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vikram.